That day, everything changed. I was sitting at my desk at 11 p.m., the blue light from the screen burning my eyes, a cup of cold coffee next to me. I had just clocked 16 hours of work, just like every other day. I was ticking boxes, answering emails, being busy. But deep down, I felt an immense emptiness. I was moving forward, but without a destination. I was making a living, but I was losing my life. I believed that was the recipe for success, exhaustion, sacrifice. Until I found this old leather-bound journal in a dusty trunk in my grandfather's attic. The first page contained only one sentence, written in a trembling hand: "The oak tree doesn't grow by shaking, but by taking root." I didn't know it yet, but that sentence was the key to a system I would come to call the lazy system, a method that would not only allow me to work 2 hours a day but to become 10 times richer than I had ever imagined. In this video, I'm going to tell you how I deciphered that journal. It's not a magic formula, but a forgotten philosophy. I'm going to share the 7 principles that radically transformed my life, shifting me from frantic, sterile activity to serene effectiveness. Make sure to stay until the very end, because the last principle is the most counterintuitive and the most powerful of all. Chapter 1: The Single Lever Rule. The journal began with a strange analogy. My grandfather spoke of Archimedes and his lever capable of moving the world. "Find your lever," he had written. Most people exhaust themselves pushing the boulder with their bare hands. At the time, my professional life was chaotic. I was juggling a dozen projects, responding to hundreds of requests, trying to be good at everything. I was convinced that the sheer volume of actions was the key. Reading those lines, I understood my fundamental mistake. I had no leverage. I was just a boulder pusher. So, I did something terrifying. I listed all my activities. There were over 30. And I asked myself the journal's question: if I could only do one of these things for the next 3 months, which one would have the greatest impact on everything else? The answer was immediate and painful. 90% of what I was doing was just noise. Busy work. My leverage point was a single skill, the one where I had the most potential, but which I was drowning under a mountain of secondary tasks. The first rule of the lazy system was born: identify and devote myself almost exclusively to that one high-impact action. That was the beginning, but the hardest part was yet to come. Chapter 2: Radical Elimination. Once the lever was identified, the journal became much more direct. The next page showed a drawing of a sculptor in front of a marble block, with the caption: "The sculpture is already within the stone. My work is only to remove what is unnecessary." It wasn't about better managing my time, but better managing my no, so I took my list of 30 activities and started carving it away. Ruthlessly. Meetings where my presence wasn't vital? Gone. Phone notifications? Permanently disabled. Interesting but not essential projects? Dropped. The 3 hours a day spent getting informed on social media? Vanished. At first, it was daunting. I felt like I was missing out on opportunities, disappointing people. Society conditions us to say yes, to be available, to appear busy. The lazy system taught me to say no so I could say a resounding yes to my leverage. I freed up hours, but more importantly, I freed up a phenomenal amount of mental space. The marble block was just beginning to reveal its form, yet the biggest change had not even arrived. Chapter 3: The Lazy Sprint. I had my leverage, I had eliminated the noise. But how to work? The journal described what my grandfather called the cheetah's effort. A cheetah doesn't trot all day. It rests, observes, and when the moment comes, it delivers a sprint of lightning intensity. Then, it rests again. This is the opposite of our work culture, which glorifies the 8-hour workday where you sit at a desk, whether you're productive or not. So I applied this principle. No more extended days. My goal was now to work 2 hours a day. But be careful, not just any 2 hours. It was a sprint. A 120-minute block of absolute, uninterrupted concentration, entirely dedicated to my single leverage point. No phone in the room. No messaging tab open. No distracting music. Just me and the task. The first 30 minutes of my first sprint were hell. My brain, accustomed to constant distraction, was screaming for help. I wanted to check emails, grab a coffee, do anything else. But I held firm. And after a week, something incredible happened. I accomplished more in those 2 intense hours than in 10 hours of fragmented work before. The secret wasn't in the duration, but in the density of effort. But that's not all, because the system then presented me with its greatest challenge. Chapter 4: The Silent Compound Effect. After 3 weeks of this new regimen, doubt crept in. Violently. I was working less, feeling more rested, but the spectacular results I expected weren't there. I felt like I was stagnating, becoming a real slacker, in the negative sense of the word. I was on the verge of giving up everything, of returning to my 16 hours of frantic work, just to feel productive again. That's when I reread a passage from the journal I had ignored. There was a drawing of a bamboo shoot. Below it, it was written, "For 5 years, the seed works underground, invisible. Then, in 6 weeks, the bamboo shoots up 30 meters." I understood. I was obsessed with immediate, visible results. The lazy system, however, is based on the silent compound effect. Each 2-hour sprint was like a day of watering for my bamboo seed. The work was happening deep down, invisible to the naked eye. I decided to trust the process. And that's when the unexpected turning point occurred. A month later, out of nowhere, a project I had been working on during my sprints took off. Not an explosion, but recognition, an opportunity that validated months of concentrated effort. It was proof. The bamboo was breaking through the ground. I had touched the secret of exponential, not linear, growth. Chapter 5: Asymmetrical Wealth. This is where the concept of becoming 10x richer truly comes into its own. And it's not what you think. The journal contained a diagram that fascinated me, a small 1% input that generated a 50% output. This is the principle of asymmetrical wealth. My grandfather explained that in life, most results are not proportional to effort. Some actions have a disproportionate return on investment. My old self spent 80% of his time on tasks that only generated 20% of the results. The lazy system forced me to turn the tide. I started looking for asymmetry everywhere. In my learning, instead of reading 10 books on a topic, I sought the one book, article, or mentor that contained 80% of the essential wisdom. In my health, instead of trying every trendy diet, I focused on the 3 fundamental habits that had the most impact: sleep, nutrition, movement. The wealth the journal spoke of wasn't just financial. It was a wealth of time, energy, mental clarity, serenity. By applying minimal force in the right place, the leverage point, I achieved massive results in all areas of my life. I wasn't working more, I wasn't necessarily making more money initially, but my life had become infinitely richer and simpler. Chapter 6: Invisible Automation. Once you master a process during your sprints, what then? Repeat it ad infinitum? No. The journal had another piece of advice: don't carry the buckets, build the aqueduct. The idea is to transform repetitive and mastered actions into systems that almost work without you. Be careful, we're not talking about complex software automation here. We're talking about creating habits, checklists, templates. For example, for certain recurring tasks, I created a simple, step-by-step procedure that I only had to follow. This eliminated the mental load of having to think about how to do something each time. My energy was no longer spent doing the work, but improving the system that did the work. My 2-hour sprints became increasingly powerful. The first hour was dedicated to execution, and the second to systematization. How can I do this faster next time? How can I eliminate a step? How can I create a template so I never have to start from scratch again? That's invisible automation. It's becoming the architect of your productivity, not just the laborer. And this prepared me for the last, most perplexing principle of all. Chapter 7, Productive Disconnection. I thought I had understood everything. The leverage, the elimination, the sprint, the compound effect. The machine was well-oiled. But the last pages of my grandfather's journal contained no theories about work. They were filled with sketches of birds, tree leaves, notes on long forest walks, reflections on classical music. I first thought they were his hobbies. Then I understood. This was the centerpiece of the system. The real work isn't done during the 2-hour sprint. It's done during the 22 hours of laziness. The sprint serves to plant seeds, to feed the subconscious with a problem or task. But the solution, the flash of genius, the unexpected connection, it never emerges when you force it. It appears in the shower, during a walk, while watching clouds pass by. This is productive disconnection. So I started planning my free time as seriously as my work sprints. Long periods of aimlessness, no screens, no stimulation. Just boredom, nature, silence. And that's where the best ideas of my life emerged. The lazy system is not a method to cram more work into less time. It's a method to free up time so our minds can do what they do best, create, connect, and solve. True wealth is having the time to be bored. In conclusion, this old journal didn't give me a magic recipe. It offered me a new compass. It taught me that success isn't measured in hours of sweat, but in relevance of impact. The lazy system taught me to move from doing more to being more. More intentional, more focused, more serene. I stopped chasing time, and it came back to me. That kind of wealth, no 16-hour workday could ever buy. This system may not make you rich overnight, but it will make you rich in what truly matters, time to live. It will teach you that the oak tree doesn't grow by shaking, but by rooting deeply into what is essential. Save this video so you don't forget. Don't forget to subscribe.